Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Tuesday. So, today we are working on my favorite series, which is the WWF Hasbro review videos. And I'm pretty sure, like many of you guys, this is the one video of the week I do look forward to reviewing. And, just like you guys, shoot, once I post this video, I'm no longer just the content creator. I am actually a fan. And you know what? Unlike the LJN figures, right? Unlike the Remco figures, I'm not old enough to have grown up with those figures, with those lines. So whenever I do a review of any of those lines, I don't have those nostalgic memories and feelings towards those figures. Yeah, as an adult collector, I can be grateful for them and in my late 30s when I finally started collecting and got the appreciation and love affection for this stuff. I can look back and look at them as works of art from that perspective, but I don't have those fondness, those childhood memories. But the Hasbros, those are the figures from childhood. Those are the fond memories that I have. So when I look back at the Hasbro figures and I do these reviews, I can reflect on those childhood memories and actually have a smile on my face and actually talk about history. So I thoroughly enjoy every single time I do, or every time I discuss the Hasbros because I can actually connect directly with the actual WWF Hasbro figures. Unfortunately, today's video is a little bit different. Today we are looking at the first release from 1992, Series 3 WWF Hasbro. As I said, it is the first release that year. It is the first time that you're going to see multiple releases over the next couple of years from Hasbro. Now, in Series 1, 1990, one year, one release. In 1991, Series 2, 1 year, one release. But in 1992, you had Series 3 released, but later on you also had Series 4 released. Now, next week, we're also going to review Series 4, and when we get into that, I'm going to actually have something to reflect on. But in the meantime, Series 3, it's a little bit of a sour note for me because unfortunately, this is probably going to be a straight review for me. Reason being, I didn't have any of these figures from childhood. And like I've always said, Series 3 and Series 5 onward, I never knew about these figures my entire life. I never even saw these figures for the first time until I became an adult collector. So I don't have that childhood memories of actually playing with these figures. So yeah, I'm not going to have any of those abilities to actually sit back and kind of rehash, those memories like I've done the previous two videos. Now, once we get into Series 4, we will obviously go back and kind of talk about a few memories because I did have a few of those figures, but that's basically where we're going to be cut off. But we're still going to be able to talk about the serviceability, the playability of the figures. We're still going to be talking about value. So, of course, for those collectors who don't want to overpay, what are these figures worth, or what you should pay for them? I'm definitely going to be able to provide that information for you. Are you a seller on eBay? Are you a new seller? What can I reasonably expect to sell these figures for? Because yeah, you are going to look on eBay, and a lot of these prices that people are selling for are ridiculous. Look, guys, I know I'm beating a dead horse with this comment, but as a seller, anybody can ask for whatever price they want. It's their property. If they want to sell something and ask for $1 million, they can ask for $1 million. Are they going to get $1 million? that that's the point I'm trying to push forward to sellers. You got to basically list items for fair market value, and when you're overpricing things, you're never going to sell the item. And if you do sell it, you're basically ripping off your buyers. So keep that in mind. You offer products for a fair market value, you're going to have repeat buyers. So that right there is definitely something you want to keep in mind. When you have repeat business, you're gonna make a whole lot more sales, earn a whole lot more profit with that repeat business than you know running those prices up right off the bat. So, well, let's dive right into today's series 3 review. And who else are we going to start with other than the immortal one himself, Hulk Hogan? Well, we are always going to start with Hulk Hogan because he is, after all, the face of the franchise. Hulk Hogan obviously has a series release every time out, pretty much. Series 1 release, Series 2 release, Series 3 release. He's not the only one. He's not the only superstar. We're going to see a couple other cats who basically have the same deal in this series as well. But this is your Series 3 Hulk Hogan. Pay close attention to the body of this particular figure. Now, Hulk Hogan, this is actually a Spanish card, so I have no idea what this says. Con Hulkaplex. I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know what that means. I actually signed up for German in high school. Got German textbooks, and junior year, I started day one of what was it, language class, and looked at looked at my class schedule, and I had Spanish one. I'm like, what the heck? I show up to Spanish one with the 2 German textbooks. I'm like, how the heck does German get overbooked? Yeah, I sucked at Spanish. And you would think that that Spanish would be like super freaking easy. I mean, I gotta be grateful actually that I actually had Spanish, because if I sucked that bad in Spanish, imagine how horrible I would have been in German. But this is your Hulk Hogan action figure. Um, yeah, I'm not. Why am I looking at the back of the card? I can't read that. Hulk Hogan, and nothing super splashy on the front of the card. So, action feature, right? So, Hulk Hogan in Series 3, your Bret Hart in Series 4, relatively the same figure. So, a couple of things to note with this respective figure. Number one, you look at the pose, actually look at the figure in general. Yes, the graphics are different compared to, let's say, his Series 2 Bear Hug Hulk Hogan, but when you compare this figure to the Series 2, it's quintessentially the exact same figure. Now, all they did was basically spread open the arms, and bam, you have probably the most perfect wrestling figure in the entire Hasbro line. Now, I say one of the most perfect figures, yet when I do my top 10 countdown of best Hasbro figures, Hulk Hogan, none of the Hulk Hogan figures are anywhere near my top 10 list. I don't even know if I even classify Hulk Hogan anywhere in the top 15, top 20. And it's not that any of them are bad figures. I mean, like I said, they're perfect, but it's just that the Hasbro figures are just so loaded with amazing pieces after amazing pieces. And this is a fantastic figure. Now, just like any toy line, or really forget toys, any product, think of any product that has ever been released. When you first release a new product, you're going to have your hiccups, your little glitches here and there, right? It's common. not many products are gonna just be absolutely enormous, major hits right off the bat. So grapples and gimmicks, I use them as a perfect example because when I look at grapples and gimmicks, I always say that they're the toy line that most closely resembles Hasbro. So to me, they're always my number one perfect comparable figures. You look at their first three figures or so, four figures, and they're nice figures, but they weren't like super incredible. But you look at the figures since then, I mean, they have made huge upgrades and they just line up beautifully with what you get here, right? And then you look at Hasbro as a again as a caveat. The first two series of Hasbro were pretty solid pieces. But I also say that the first two series of Hasbro also produced easily the weakest line of figures, no doubt. If you're looking at your top 10 worst Hasbros, top 15 worst Hasbros, they're all going to come from the first two series. In series 3, the Hasbro figures just absolutely exploded. My personal opinion, series 3 easily, without a shadow of doubt, has the most perfect lineup of figures. Not necessarily the best characters per se, but the figures in general, fighting pose, color scheme, basically what I mean, the figures with accessories, basically anything you're looking for in an action figure, Series 3 is without a shadow of doubt the best lineup of figures from the Hasbro line. They absolutely killed it in Series 3. And Hulk Hogan, Series 3, the most perfect of the Hulk Hogan figures. And also in 92, they also had a Hulk Hogan mail away. And it was based on his WrestleMania, was it WrestleMania 9 or was it 9 or 10? I believe it was WrestleMania 9, if I'm not mistaken, uh, where he faced Yokozuna and won back his title. And he was all in the red getup. Well, they used the exact same figure. Now, where I classify most of Series 1 and 2 Hasbro figures, most of the figures are going to be like one or going to be like $10 figures, right? Once you get into Series 3, I pretty much rate most of these figures. Almost all of them are going to be, if not double, I would say a good chunk of them are pretty much going to be close to it. A Series 3 Hulk Hogan in really good condition. If the arms are tight, action works. If the t shirt is completely filled in, good graphics. I would normally say that this particular figure, if you get it for about $30, I think that is a good I think that's a fair price. But I would start looking at it for around $20. I think $20 is your go to price. $15 if you can find one for around $15, even in not poor but adequate shape. Count your blessings. You're very rarely ever going to find this figure for $15 or less. Caveat: if you are willing to pay $30 or $40 in shipping, you can go to UK sellers and you can get these guys for around $3, $5. I do that all the time, and try and win as many auctions as you can. That's where I get a lot of my duplicates. I bid on all these auctions and I buy them from UK sellers. But shoot, man, sometimes you're paying like $70 to $100 in shipping. I mean that. And so when I sell my figures, I mean like even if I pay like $3 for this, for example, and I sell it for 20, when you look at the shipping cost, like I may not even turn a profit on all the sales that I make. That's why, because I sell them for what they should go for, based on U.S. market value. But most people might sell this for like $45, and I'm like, dude, that's ridiculous. Sell it for $20. That's what it's worth. So, but between $20 or $30 for a Hulk Hogan is definitely a fair market value for that particular figure. Next up is one of the single greatest figures from Hasbro, and if the Yokozuna figure did not exist, this could potentially be the greatest figure from Hasbro. And it is the purple Ultimate Warrior. This one is, I think, a French card. Again, I don't know what it says, so I can't exactly read this off. There is one thing that kind of sticks out on the back of this card, though. It says X Champion, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, there's actually variations. Like, if you look at a Series 1 with the fused legs, it'll actually say WWF Champion. And I think some of those battle cards, I mean, like I said, the battle cards do change. So you can get variations of the actual card backings. But this is your figure on card. Now the Ultimate Warrior, I know most people are going to want that figure with American card backing, but look, even on Spanish card, Italian card, French card, that figure is just so freaking expensive. I mean, at least when I was searching for that stuff, those figures normally were going for like $300 plus. Today's market value, they may have gone down, but if I had to guess, even with the drop in price, I would still assume that even on a foreign card, I would imagine that they would still be in the $150 to $200 range if the card is in good shape. So even on a non-US card, you're still going to pay up for it. The figure itself, again, the figure itself, when I was when I started my collection originally, this figure used to go for like $75 plus every time, and this was always one of the most valuable figures. And I used to try to buy this figure as much as humanly possible because I wanted a plethora of these figures for resale value. I always thought that this figure was like money in the bank. And every time I got an extra figure in, and I eventually, if I ever did sell it, I'd sell it for like I'd get like $30 for it. I'm like, man, that's insane. I'd get like, yeah, like 30, 35, $38. I'm telling you, if unless you've been selling on eBay for like 20 years and you've got like 20,000 sales under your belt, or you've got like 1,000 followers on eBay, you're really not gonna get your money's worth. It's sad. When it's me and Bone Breaking Action, we joke about this all the time. Whenever whenever we are whenever we're buyers, we're paying a fortune, and whenever we're sellers, we're getting a pittance in return. So it's still it's still a valuable figure. I mean, 30 or 40 bucks to purchase this figure. It's still one of the more valuable figures in the Hasbro line, and this one being in near mint condition, relatively, yeah, I think 40 50 bucks, but still condition wise. Look for something with minuscule paint loss in the hair. You could get it for about 30 something dollars. Um, this is one of my favorite figures. So I said it before. I never knew about these figures, right? So my entire life, the Series 2 Hasbro of Ultimate Warrior was always my favorite Warrior figure. But once I discovered this piece, hands down, this is the fighting pose is perfection. Arms straight out, I mean, just my ideal figure, fighting pose wise. The color scheme, The boots, the aesthetics of this figure is absolutely insane. It sucks that this is actually the last Ultimate Warrior that was released from Hasbro. At least with Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, at least you get one more additional figure from the line. With Hogan, if you include the mail weight, two additional figures. But this is such an insanely good piece. But I kind of feel like when Ultimate Warrior made his return in the late '90s and stuff, if Hasbro had continued on, you would have gotten characters like Jeff Jarrett and Diesel, Mabel, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, right? So all these fun characters, Max Moon and what have you. So I feel like yeah, you probably would have gotten another Warrior or two, but this is an absolute flawless figure. This is one of those figures that whenever you see someone take an original Ultimate Warrior, and people do make resin figures, right? Resin customs. That's fine. I have a resin custom, and the figure is just kind of like like this or something, or the arms are straight down. It's an immovable figure, right? You want to paint that up? That's fine. But like people, they take an actual real Hasbro figure and they paint it. I'm like, I hate that. That drives me nuts. Uh, I feel like there's two things that I don't want to do with LJNs or with Hasbro's. Number one, if a figure is mint or near mint, I never want that figure to be customized. Or B, if the figure has value. Well, if it's like $15, if it's worth like $15 or more, even if it's got paint loss or there's paint bleed on the figure, or it's got like it's a doink figure and it's got like broken fingers, it's still gonna sell for like $15-$20, right? So those are figures I wouldn't want to see destroyed or repainted or anything because they're valuable. People are still gonna want those figures. So, and I see people like repaint Ultimate Warrior. I'm like, ah, it's such a perfect figure. I hate seeing that. That's terrible. Perfect piece. Ultimate Warrior. Hasbro. Seriously. Um. All right. I just gotta do that again. So Ultimate Warrior and the Giant Gonzalez. Or Skinner. I always say they got like dual actions, but I mean that's because I kind of lift their arms up one at a time. But it's really you push down on the head type of deal. All right, and well, you got Hogan, you've got Warrior. Who else is your biggest superstar of the line? Of course, you've got the Macho Man Randy Savage. In the last video, I said pay close attention to the card backing, right? Well, did we not just see this figure already? Not exactly. In Series 2, we saw, yes, this figure, but it did come with a crown and scepter, right? But if you're at the store or you're on eBay or something, right? And you're looking and you're scrolling through and you come across this, you're like, oh, well, I already got a Series 2 Macho Man. I don't need a Series 3 or I don't need another one. You may not be looking on this side for the accessories, and all you see is a purple trunks. Your first thought is Macho King because that's the most common figure. I always say pay attention to the photograph because you're so if you look over here and you see Macho Man with the crown, you know it's a Series 2 Macho King. But you see him with the cowboy hat and you realize no, that's not the Series 2 Macho Man. Now, this one comes with the Macho Masher. Again, is the exact same figure as a Series 2. Only difference, they swap out Macho King with Macho Man. Now, a Macho King individually by himself, as I said, I mean, I've sold that figure for, even though he's in like really great condition, right? I've sold that figure for like as little as like $6, $7, $8. I've gotten as high as like 12, $14. I mean, that figure does not sell well, and it's a shame. It's a great figure. Macho Man, like this one has, pretty decent paint loss on the knee pads, right? But the trunks, I mean, you can actually read the entire name Macho Man very legibly, right? So a figure like this in this condition, even with the paint loss, this should still go for a good $30 to $50 if this were to go on auction. But with that being said, it depends on the seller, right? Hypothetically, if I put this up with like $5 shipping and I started an auction at 99¢, I personally could probably get like maybe $22 to $32 on auction. Whereas, let's say someone like Anthony Todd Martin or Anthony Andrew Todd Martin, Mabel Toys could probably get like $42 or $52. He's like one of the best sellers in Hasbro figures, and he's got like over 1,000 followers on eBay. So he's a well known seller of Hasbro. So there's a difference between us as sellers, right? So when I look at a figure like this, I'm like, this is never a figure I'd customize because it may not be perfect, but it's a Macho Man. It's a very valuable figure. So when I say Series 3 is loaded with valuable figures, yeah, Macho Man. I would probably say that the Macho Man figure is probably a good $30 figure. So another, I would say, expensive. Now we're not looking at like Series 11, talking about hundreds of dollars expensive, but basically anything in the $20 range or higher, I'm classifying as expensive. So, and of course the Macho Masher, the same thing as pretty much any of your right extended arm figures. And of course, you want to make sure that the right extended arm is nice and tight. So that's always very important and a really solid piece. So Macho Man, awesome to have that. The one downside, I would have liked if they actually came out with a new piece. Obviously, now Hulk Hogan, yeah, technically, like I said, the Series 2 and Series 3 Hogan, in essence, are relatively the same figure, right? They just took the bear hug and just opened it up. Swapping the king with the man, not really much of a change there, but at least they changed the graphics on the T-shirt, and the change of the pose was enough of a change for the for the Hogan to make it enough of a unique figure. Macho Man, it just wasn't enough. And the mint on card, and that's another thing. Mint on card, when you're looking at a Series 2 to 3, they're both crazy expensive. Like there's not really a savings there if you are a mint on card collector. A Series 2, because pretty much any of the figures that come with accessories, you're really looking at multiple hundreds of dollars in expenditures. $200-$300. I mean, today's market, would that price go down 150, 175? Maybe. I mean, you probably have to find a beat up card, but I would still say you're probably looking at a good $300 on average. I would say maybe 250 if you can luck out. Series 3 Macho Man might actually even be more expensive. You're probably still going to be hovering in the 300 to 330 range. So you're not really it's not really going to be any less expensive because he comes with no accessories. So, and I do think that the Series 3 is much more rare on cards, so that's obviously plays a huge role into it. Now, a figure that comes with accessories or comes with accessory and is one of the more rare figures on card and is a figure that I would have loved to have had as a kid. Brutus, the Barber, Beefcake. This one is, I think, Italian card. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this word on here. Okay, fine, I'll try. Ciata di beefcake. I butchered the heck out of that. So here's the thing, man. This is a like I said. I think this was an Italian card, and it does have creases up here. The back of the card has its issues. Tape here. You got tape up here, somewhere right there. There was a lot wrong with this card. If you want to try to, if you're a mint on card collector and you're trying to find a perfect or near perfect card on English card on a U.S. card backing, this is one of the most expensive Hasbro cards you are going to purchase. It is right up there with the Series 8 with coat Undertaker. It's right up there with your Series 2 Dusty Rhodes and pretty much all of your Series 11 cards. I mean, we're talking $600+ a lot of the time. Uh, I don't remember how much I paid for this. I don't think I paid that much. And I think because of some of the deficiencies, I think I got it for a little bit better price. But it's a pretty hefty price tag. Now, the thing with the Brutus Beefcake, again, this is a darn near perfect figure. The only downside is when you look at the Series 1 Brutus Beefcake and the Series 3, they did reutilize the exact same head. Very common with Hasbro is reutilizing the exact same body types. And a lot of time they just swap on different heads for different characters, but utilizing same heads for for uh for the characters, that's different. I mean, you got three different Shawn Michaels. A Series 7 and Series 10 Shawn Michaels was really the only one that utilized the same head. But the same head, same body, they just changed out the color of the pants, right? Or 7, Series 10, Razor Ramon. Same body, same head, they just change out the color scheme. But Series 1 and Series 3 Brutus Beefcake are completely different figures. So I'm surprised they didn't change out the whole entire head as well. But the fighting pose is excellent. The color scheme of the pants is phenomenal. And there is obviously a legitimate prototype with the Mega Maniac Brutus Beefcake. Now, I own a few different custom Mega Maniac Beefcake customs of the Mega Maniac, and I've sold a few of them. My buddy Rob, he's made several for me, which has been amazing. This figure, I mean, this a pretty solid mint condition or near mint Brutus Beefcake. They don't even have to be mint. I mean, the arms are relatively strong, even if they're weak. It has a working action, looks good. The nose isn't chipped. The hair looks good. These are generally a minimum, let's say $20 figures, but between 20, 25, $30, I think that's about average. $20 at a low point. If you could get them for around $15, count your blessings. But $20 is a good price for this figure. Um, if you can get black shears, even custom shears, black is very rare. So even black customs will probably go for a good price, $10, $15. If you find original shears, they're like rubbery. I mean, those darn things, the shears alone will probably set you back $30 to $50, probably closer to 50. So a Brutus beefcake in great condition with original shears. Don't be surprised if you have to pay somewhere around $75 for it or more. Awesome figure again. Smash and Series 1 $1 Million Man, Series 7 Nails, all of these guys that come with these uppercut punches, the Series 2 Roddy Piper, etc. They're it's a fine action feature. I like it a lot. Very simple, very fine, very fun. So, and here's another figure that I say that, and it's odd that a Series 4 Bret Hart, one of my all time favorite figures, probably the most utilized figure ever among my Hasbros, isn't a top 10 favorite for me. Series 3 Hogan, a Series 3 Bruce Beefcake. These are all lovable figures, and yet none of them are on my top 10 list of favorites. They're probably top 15, top 20, most certainly, but I'm wondering if I ever reshuffle that list, if I ever do new top 10 favorite, if any of them would be on that list again, if any of them would be. Like my old list had a Series 3 Boss Man, it had Series 2 Honky Tonk Man, for example. I'm wondering if those guys would ever fall off. Just curious. Series 2, but the Series 3 Brutus, amazing. What an upgrade compared to the Series 1. I could have actually used this figure, but when you look at like the sleeper hold Series 1 Brutus Beefcake, which I simply did not know how to use as a kid, and then I kind of look at that figure as an adult, I'm like, why couldn't we have had that? That, like I said, that could have gotten used. Another figure that, now, this character, again, we had his figure in Series 1, and it got a lot of use, but the dimensions of the figure was just so odd. And this figure, again, is a top 10 favorite of mine. And we are looking at the Big Boss Man. And I just said, Big Boss Man is one of my top 10 favorite Hasbros. Back in 2022, right after I completed my very first My Favorite LGN tournament, shortly thereafter, I was working on a top 10 list of my top 10 favorite Hasbros, my top 10 least favorite Hasbros. And surprisingly, the Big Boss Man, I think, came in at like number 10 of my top 10 favorite. This one, surprisingly, I have a lot of Spanish cards, a lot of non American based cards for Series 3. I didn't realize I had so many of these. If I had just waited like another year and a half or so to start buying all of these figures on card, I could have got all of these figures for like a fraction of the cost. All of these cards, when I bought them, probably was, and I was probably buying them on foreign card, and I was probably paying like 200 or $300 for them. And a lot of them with the accessories, yeah, I was probably paying up. And today, like this figure, especially on a non-US based card, I probably could get this for like $75 today, maybe. Uh, Big Boss Man. But yeah, like I said, man, just another one of those guys. Probably like a powerhouse or jailhouse slam or something. I'm sure I could have looked it up and wrote it down, but relatively the same accessory that you get. I think somebody said something about like there's lines on on the nightstick, and that the lines on the nightstick is a little bit different from Series 1 to Series 3. But I have to actually look at the nightstick on card to actually see what they're talking about, because I don't see a whole lot difference. So I've been talking a lot lately about my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. And I kind of feel like my top eight wrestlers with Hogan, Warrior, Macho Man, and then uh, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Bulldog, and Roddy Piper. I think those top eight are always going to be safe. I've been floating the idea that maybe Ted DiBiase at number 9 is safe, but number 10, who would I probably put in at number 10? I've been thinking and I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I have no idea who I could probably think of that could potentially fill the number 10 slot among my favorite wrestlers of all time. I thought, okay, I floated the idea that maybe Earthquake could have potentially been my number 10 favorite. I thought maybe Marty Jannetty would have been a solid choice for number 10 and maybe the most likely beneficiary for the number 10 slot. But no, man, I think doing the My Favorite LJN tournament and kind of doing these review videos, I think I've got to go with the Big Boss Man. I think Big Boss Man has to be on my list of top 10 favorite all time favorite wrestlers. He's just awesome. I love his promos. I love him when he's on the mic, man, talking. And in the ring, he's just so much fun and energetic. And I don't know what it is, but every time he's wrestling, like he's always buttoned up. But like within seconds of wrestling, his shirt comes undone and like, man, get some tighter buttons. Oh man. But his figure is so good. And of course I think I always enjoy the fact that when the figures come with accessories, it just makes their figures, even better. So such a huge upgrade in Series 3 compared to Series 1. Not the fact that he's even slimmed down. I mean, it's just the fact that it's such a more proportionate figure in Series 3 when you're comparing it to the Series 1. I mean, the big gut in Series 1, fine. He was a heavier fella when he first entered WWF in what was it, 88, 89, 87? When did he come in WWF? Late 80s. I'm just going to say late 80s. I mean, he had a release in LJN Grand Toys in '89, so I would say he at least had to be in part of WWF in '88, at least. So I don't know. Was he part of Survivor Series in '87? I don't think so. I'm gonna say '88, but I don't know. In '88, I was 3 years old. I wasn't watching wrestling then, so where was I? Oh, but this figure, I mean, tremendous fighting pose, color, right, and back to Honky Tonk Man, back to Ted DiBiase, Big Boss Man. The figures with the clothes, I like it a lot. The clothing accessories, they just add more to the figure. They add more to the aesthetics, to the look, and with the color scheme, looks amazing. My buddy Rob, I sent him another Big Boss Man. Well, actually, I sent him two of them. The first one I sent him, he's actually, I mean, it's a really destroyed Big Boss Man. So, um, he's gonna save the LJN stencil on the feet, obviously, but we're gonna try to save the LJN and we're gonna actually customize it, and we're gonna do the all black SWAT Big Boss Man, and it's gonna look spectacular. So it's not gonna be this type of color scheme, but it's gonna be something different. So we don't have to have all of the figures look identical. And the one I just got recently, that one we're gonna do a restoration on. So that one we actually are gonna completely bring back to life. Big Boss Man, I am adding him to add to my list of top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time, and he's already part of my list of top 10 favorite Hasbros. Love the figure, accessory, just a great piece all around. And this one I got from over here. Great thing of having all these duplicates. I don't have to touch my main display for a lot of the figures. Next one up. See, here's another one. French card, I think. The Birdman, Coco Beware. So, James Ware Jr. Yeah, I think you're gonna see a lot of these figures on foreign card in Series 3 because it's not like I was sitting there and like, you know what, I'm buying all of Series 1, excuse me, buying all of Series 1 first, buying all of Series 2 next, buying all I was kind of like buying whatever I could get my hands on at the time. And yeah, that's basically all I was doing. I was just buying whatever I could get. And I think there was a point where I was maybe trying to go for like maybe the figures. Maybe I was putting a priority on figures that came with accessories. And I think I was doing the same thing with like with LJN as well. I was putting a priority on figures that came with accessories because I always kind of feel like figures that had accessories, there was a higher demand for those. Like they were more valuable. So and because the figures were more expensive, obviously I didn't really care. It wasn't important to me to have American cards. So if I could get an American card for $400 or buy a French card for 130, for example, I'll save the $270 and buy the French card. It was just more important for me to have something for the collection, right? So that's where you're going to see a bunch of foreign based cards, and that's fine. Will I ever go back and change them out? 99.9% chance says no. I'm pretty good with what I got. Uh, with Coco Beware, Big Boss Man price. I skipped that. Big Boss Man price tag for a loose figure. I would normally say a Big Boss Man individually is about a $15 to $25 figure. If it's in pretty good condition, I personally have sold it for as little as $10. And I personally think it's more valuable than that. So, like, if you see somebody listing it on like I've got a Mountie and a Big Boss Man listed together because I was kind of like doing like a Survivor Series type matchup thing, and I put them on like eBay and Mercari, and I've listed them for like $20. Like I originally listed them for $40 because I knew that somebody was going to do an offer on them, and I was going to obviously work with them and reduce and accept their offer. So if they had come down to like $30, I would accept. And I've come down from like $40 all the way to $20. And I'm like, you know what, $20 is too freaking low. Big Boss Man is more than a $10 figure. So I went back up to like 25, but Big Boss Man's like a $15 figure. Mountie Mountie's more than a $10 figure, but I would say Big Boss Man between 15 and $25 with original nightstick. I would say probably between 25 to $40 with original with custom nightstick. If it's a custom nightstick, I'd probably give it around $30. Uh, Custom accessories, especially the nightsticks, are relatively easy to duplicate. Coco Beware. Now, I don't like this figure. Well, the figure I don't mind at all. It's the darn accessory. Can never get the darn. I can never get him to hold the freaking accessory. Like I always gotta lean the bird up against his head or something. Like I can't get it to stick. Like I am terrible at that. But the oddity is even an original accessory, original Hasbro accessory, is just as expensive as an original LJN Frankie accessory, and I would say they're both around $40. So, but Coco Beware himself is not a bad figure. I mean, another jumper, that's fine. You know, it's so Coco Beware. Let's start with value. I would say Coco Beware is around a $15 figure. So not a cheap figure by any means. I mean, he's not an overly expensive figure, but I would say $15. And yes, if you are on auction, this figure can go up higher, $20, $25 or more. It's possible. With the original accessory, Coco Beware with accessory can go $30, $40 easy. But I would say $30 for figure and accessory is probably reasonable and probably actually fairly inexpensive if you can get an original accessory. Actually, figure plus probably custom accessory for $30 is probably very reasonable, but it's another one of those figures that a lot of fans don't like, not only because of the fused legs, but because of the hunchback. I mean, this is something that nobody will ever use, right? It's a very plain and simple figure. I mean, with the whole look, right? I don't know if I was a fan of Coco Beware from childhood. I could, I vaguely remember rooting for Coco Beware when I was young. But he reminds me of the Bushwhackers, like someone that you would root for when you're a kid, but when you're an adult and you kind of look back at their matches, like you are, like, I don't want to say disappointed, but like bored. Yeah, disappointed, bored would be good words, would be good descriptors. I don't think Coco Beware deserves the amount of respect. And I could be wrong. Maybe because I didn't grow up watching Coco Beware in all of these other territories. Maybe he was this absolutely amazing professional wrestler in all of these other locations he was at. But when I saw Coco Beware, and the only my only experience to watching him was in WWF, I didn't see him in Florida and all these other areas, right? So when I watched him, he was always getting beat up. You put them you put the two smallest guys in wrestling and Owen and Coco Beware together, and you form high energy, and it's like, what were they supposed to do to cut together? What kind of formidable tag team were they supposed to be together? It's like bushwhackers, right? Putting bushwhackers against natural disasters. What kind of force were they supposed to do against guys that size? I mean, that was never going to last. I don't mind the figure. I think Coco Beware gets some of the most amazing figures. People hate on his LJN. I love his LJN figure. I think it's great. The hand pose it might be suspect, but I'm okay with it. The again the pants and boots. I mean, it's very plain and simple. But unlike, let's say, someone like Jim Duggan, if I were doing like a top 15, top 20 least favorite figures, yeah, I think most certainly Coco Beware would probably be on my top 15 or top 20 list of least favorite figures. But like, I never hate on the figure, not really. And I think he is most certainly saved by the fact that he comes with an awesome accessory. It is a sad story though. My wife tells me that parrots live to be like 100 years old, and I didn't know that. And we were in the car the other day. We were talking because his macaw Frankie. I mean, he's had that bird since at least the '80s. And there was a house fire in 2002, and Frankie died in that fire. And I'm like, man, that's sad because this bird is freaking synonymous with James Ware. So, hearing that story was absolutely heartbreaking. So, I mean, so many live human beings have died, but you kind of get that gut wrenching from a bird. But still, animals, humans, someone dies, something dies, it affects you. Just because it's an animal life doesn't make it any less valuable. All right. Coco, beware. I feel like I'm missing something. Probably not, but we'll go with this guy next. So, a very plain figure and not a character that I really had any fondness for. But oddly enough, his figure from Hasbro didn't do anything for me. I needed his figure to complete the collection. I needed his figure for LJN as to complete the collection. His figure for Hasbro still is nah. It's a good figure, but it's not anything special. Doesn't like get the juices flowing or anything. But his figure for LJN was like changed my whole opinion of his character. Got me more interested in him as a wrestler and his backstory and everything. Obviously, when I watched this particular character in the '90s, he wasn't the mega superstar that I guess a lot of people who was watching wrestling in the '80s knew him. So who am I talking about? Greg Valentine. Greg Valentine comes with the Hammer Slammer, and this is the back of his card. Hammer Slammer. So we get a lot of these figures with the right extended arm. And like I said, for a long time, I wasn't a huge fan of the right extended arm. And I talked about it before, and I'll bring it up in the next video when we discuss Series 4. And it's generally when the right extended arm, when it becomes loose and floppy, and you start like shaking the figure right, and then the arm just bats back and forth. I don't know how to tighten this stuff up, right? I mean, actually, kind of looking at it, no, there. I thought there was a screw in there, and you can sit there and tighten it up, but I don't know how to fix it. Actually, yeah, there it is at the bottom. That actually looks like it could be a simple fix, but once it becomes loose and floppy, it becomes a worthless figure, basically. Greg Valentine's another one of those figures in terms of value that it looks like it could be like a very profitable figure, like $20 or something. But I've had 100 million Greg Valentines that I purchased over the last few years, and I've tried to sell them 100 million. I don't ask the world for these figures. I probably ask somewhere between $10 to $15. Sometimes I might get $15. Sometimes I might get 12. Sometimes I might get as little as $6 for a Greg Valentine figure. And it's a shame because, like I said, there have been times on either eBay or Mercari where I've gotten $8, 10, 12, 15. And there have been other times where I've had a legitimate mint Greg Valentine figure 100% mint, or of other times I've had a near mint figure with maybe the slightest paint fade of the name or in the hair possibly, and you get like $6 for it on eBay on auction, and after selling fees and all that, you get like what is that like 475 or something. So I don't know why people don't covet this figure. I remember there was this seller maybe a year and a half ago, really angered the heck out of me. He had this listing up on eBay, and this is what I'm talking about really bad sellers that don't know the value and overprice their figures and they scam their buyers. So he puts up a picture. It's a blank picture essentially. So it's a picture that just it's a picture showing all of these Hasbro figures. $40. So so obviously it's so when a buyer goes in and they see this picture and they see like 20,000 Hasbro figures, like, oh shoot, all of these figures for $40. It's awesome. Now, yes, the buyer does or the seller does state 20 million times three figures, $40. Now, based on and it, you don't get to choose. He's going to choose three random figures, and you look at the figures. I mean, none of the figures that are in that picture are worth $40. They're if you choose, they're basically worth $10 total. Maybe if you're lucky, maybe you get a good one in there. Maybe you could bring it up to like $15, $20. Maybe if you're lucky, but they're all like Series One, Series Two figures. And like I said, nothing from Series One or Series Two is valuable. Um, and I remember you telling me like there's no figures there's no Hasbro figures worth less than $10, and I'm like, are you out of your freaking mind? Uh, Obviously Jake Roberts and Jim Duggan and Brutus Beefcake. I mean, those are all like $1 figures. Sometimes most people on auction aren't going to pay more than a buck for like a Brutus Beefcake Series One, right? Or a Jake Roberts, because you could try to sell them for like $2, $5, etc. But they're they can be found in any bundle. Greg Valentine is such a common figure that most of the time, yeah, you want to get a lot of money for the figure, but it's a very common piece. So, uh, but that's for buyers and sellers. Let's get back to the actual piece. One of the things I want to do for my LJNs is take one of my spares and kind of get a little custom piece, paint the shoes black, and actually see if someone could build on one of these little braces and kind of have it with this exact look. Get the hammer built, colored on the back. I mean, I've got all these Greg Valentine LGNs, right? Why not? But it actually is a really solid piece. I mean, this is probably a middle of the rotation Hasbro figure. Out of 94 Hasbros, I could see this being somewhere probably in the 40 or 50 range among Hasbros. I mean, probably better, probably worse. I don't know. With so many awesome Hasbros, it's kind of hard to tell, but yeah, it's a good piece. I like it. All right. I thought the series three video was going to go about an hour 10 minutes, but I think we're going to kind of go over another hour and a half. I hope not, but oh man. So this next figure it comes with Tidal Wave, and we are looking at Typhoon. All right, sorry. With the lights right above me, I'm trying to get it where the light isn't exactly hitting it the wrong way. All right, Typhoon. That's a good piece. You know, one of the things that they couldn't do with like Yokozuna, for example, is take the Bam Bam Bigelow or the Earthquake or the Typhoon figure and recycle those body poses, because Bam Bam Bigelow is like what 300, 325, 350. Typhoon is probably around 400 pounds. Earthquake probably 425, 450 maybe. Uh, Yokozuna over 600 pounds. So you really couldn't mimic Yokozuna into one of these body poses. So I'm really glad Hasbro actually did the right thing and gave Yokozuna his own body. But I felt like even Bam Bam Bigelow and Typhoon and Earthquake, putting him in that same body pose was maybe too much because, like I said, those guys are like 100 pounds or close to it more than Bam Bam. But I think natural disasters. I think these guys deserve to be in their own 2 pack, and it's kind of a shame that they were released individually. Now, you could make the argument that hey, individually, these guys are selling for maybe if the price went up, maybe they went up from 3.95 to maybe they're selling for $5, and you release them individually, they sell for $10. Whereas if they were in the previous series, the individual figures are $3 and or $4, and the tag team were $7. So you just made an extra $3 by selling them individually because the individual figures went up. One of the things you gotta look for is the Typhoon on the singlet. Typhoon is an awesome figure. Basically, Typhoon or Earthquake, regardless of which figure you're looking at, either figure is generally going to net you about $10 in return. If you try to sell the figures together, if condition isn't all that, you can probably get about $15 for the pair. But I think anywhere between $15 to $30 for the pair is solid. If you're looking at both figures and you can actually read their names on their singlet, and there's no paint loss, and they're near mint figures, I wouldn't be surprised to see $40+ for the pair if they're being sold together. So, and I've seen Typhoon. Now, mind you, that this is like on a UK seller's web page, so not even going on US sellers. But on a UK seller's page, Typhoon was selling for almost $60. I mean, is it really that hard in some areas of the United Kingdom to get Hasbro's? Which is funny because I see a lot of Hasbro figures selling for like pennies in comparison to like US based sellers. So when I see certain figures selling for like astronomical prices, and I see figures that like sell for nothing here in the US, and they're selling for like crazy prices in UK. And then I see figures like Bam Bam Bigelow, a $60 figure in the US selling for like $15 in the UK. I'm like, head scratcher. So, but generally, I like to look at these figures as $15, $20 figures. So they're good pieces. And I always, this right here was always going to be my favorite action feature. I just like the slamming motion. Typhoon, I think natural disasters in general, one of my top 5 favorite tag teams. When they went good and had the opportunity to defeat Money Incorporated, and those little cheapskates decided they wanted to leave the ring and get counted out. I'm like, what kind of sick games are you playing, man? Oh, God. Awesome piece. I love these figures a lot. And it's not just that, but Earthquake. And this is one of those guys I was talking about that it was really hard keeping Earthquake off of my list of top 10 favorite characters or favorite wrestlers. Earthquake actually comes with the Aftershock. John Tenta, who really was a real life sumo wrestler. And I really enjoyed the sumo wrestler match that he had with Yokozuna. So Rodney Noe, who was Samoan in real life, but the WWF had this overabundance of sumo of a figure ready who had this oh man, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Man, I swear to God that happens to me like left and right. I was talking about sumo wrestlers and I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh man, I seriously I just lost what I was thinking. It'll come back to me. I know I was talking about sumo wrestling, and then I blanked. Let's just go back to John Tenta. So, figure itself. Again, as I was saying earlier, the earthquake, just like Typhoon, when Typhoon had his little name on this part of the singlet, earthquake. As long as your figures have the name on the figures, you know you got something special. Sometimes you'll have a mint figure, like you'll look at it and there'll be absolutely zero paint loss on the figure. You'll look at the tattoos, it'll be completely filled in. And you'll look at the singlet, perfect blue. You'll look at the aftershock, right? Everything perfect. And then you look at the singlet and be like, where is the word? Where's the lettering? Like the word earthquake will not be there. Like, how does that get faded when nothing else is faded? So it's weird. So I'm still trying to think what the heck I was talking about earlier. Oh man, Yokozuna. Jesus Christ. I was talking about the sumo wrestling with Yokozuna. Oh man. So WWF had a sumo match with Rodney Noe, and Rodney was a was Samoan in real life, and WWF had decided, you know what, we have all of these Samoan wrestlers already. We don't need another Samoan wrestler. So, what can we do with this character to make him different from everybody else that we've got in WWF right now? Shoot, let's make him this Japanese sumo wrestler, which is pretty freaking awesome because I think he made a freaking killer Japanese wrestler. My entire life, I had no freaking clue that he wasn't Japanese. Like literally, even after I became a collector a few years ago, I never knew that he wasn't Japanese. Like this, learning that he was Samoan, like that's something I just learned probably a year, 2 years ago, two and a half. I mean, I that's relatively new information for me. So, I mean, when I say that starting this collection, it's literally not. It's not just about collecting action figures and stuff. It literally has gotten me into learning more about wrestling and learning about characters and their lives and their backstories and stuff like that. So, like, I never knew like Mike Rotunda. I never knew that name before. It was always just simply IRS or Erwin R. Shyster, for example. So I would never know these people by their real life names and whatnot. So you learn a lot when you start collecting, and that's it was important to me that I kind of learn history and whatnot. So and with the YouTube, obviously, it became imperative. So I had a little bit more knowledge. I had something more to talk about. Just so I wasn't just sitting here like talking about the figures and figures only. So I had some information. So that was something. But John Tenta was a real life sumo wrestler in Japan, and I guess the story was he was dating this Japanese girl, and one of the sumo wrestlers, I forget his name, not important. He didn't like that this white guy was dating a Japanese girl, and John could have either broken it off or he could have quit. And he was like, "Nah, screw you, I quit." I don't know if that girl was his wife or something, or they ended up marrying. I don't know the whole backstory, but I know that he gave up sumo wrestling because he didn't want to break up with her. And I thought that was there's a reason why I say I want him to be like on my list of top 10 favorites. This man is freaking awesome. And everything that you hear about him in the locker room, gentle giant. Forget the guy that you see on TV or in the ring. For everything that you hear is he was an honest to God, honest and true person. And I don't think he lived a long life. I think he was like what, early or late 30s, early 40s when he died. So then that's always depressing as heck when you learn about wrestling because it doesn't seem like anybody lives a long life. Very few people actually make it to their 70s, 80s in wrestling. Uh, Next up, and here's another perfect example. Mr. Perfect. One of a couple of characters in the line who gets multiple figures. So, Mr. Perfect, again, this is like a French card or something. I don't know. But he comes with some kind of, probably comes with like the Perfect Plex or something. This is a spare figure. So, does this come with a working action? And it does. It's a weak action, but it works. So, in theory, the Mr. Perfect figure should be like a $30 figure or so, but whenever I sell a Mr. Perfect figure, I generally get about $15 for it. And that's just the thing. I'm getting tired, to be honest, of underselling myself. I know what I should sell these figures for because I know what the value of the figures are. But I kind of feel like if other people really are overvaluing it and people are paying these overvalued prices, like if I list this figure for $18 or $20 and someone comes in with an offer of 15 and I sell it, but other people are selling it for $40 and people are paying $40, what's the point of me underselling it if people are still going to undersell me when I'm already underselling it, right? But I I normally ask $15 for this figure. That's what I ask for the figure. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the everyday value. You get on eBay, Mercari, $30 plus on pretty much every single seller's page. I don't think that's necessarily necessarily the value. Oh, excuse me. Oh, my belly. Oh, voice is cracking. Talking way too much. But yeah, I mean, I think if you got like a mint figure, I think $25. I do think 25 to $30 for a Series 3 is a good fair price. Because once you get into Series 8 with the blue singlet, I think $60 is a fair market value for that figure. Again, if I was selling a Series 8 figure, I'd probably get about $30 for it. I'd get about 30 for a Series 8. I'd get about 15 for this. So just because that's what I get doesn't mean that's what other people would get for it. So I've never been a fan of this particular figure, this particular pose. Not really. I mean, Scott Steiner, I think Crush, if I'm not mistaken, Adam Bomb, I believe, and of course Mr. Perfect. So I mean, there's several figures that have this particular pose, and I don't like it. I mean, the right arm is fine. Nothing really wrong with the right arm, but the way that the left arm really shoots way out there. I mean, if the left arm is gonna shoot out there, then why doesn't the right arm shoot way out there? Or vice versa. If the right arm is that in, why can't the left arm be the same way? So I don't like the way that they have the two arms with the whole separation, like with two different separation. I hate that. So other than that, I mean, the leg position, everything else is perfectly fine. I mean, these are all cartoony figures, and they should look the way they should be, their own respective cartoony appearance. But that oddity with the arm positioning, I'm not a fan. And Mr. Perfect in wrestling, to me, I think they tried to force his, for lack of a better term, goodness on their viewers. The same way they kind of try to force Lex Luger on the fans. I think it was just too forced. Now, don't get me wrong, I love good Mr. Perfect, right? Like like the way that everybody was hating on Lex Luger. You know, today he's narcissist Lex Luger who cares about nobody but himself. And then tomorrow he's all American Lex Luger, you know, all about the United States and body slamming Yokozuna, and everybody loves him. Suddenly one day Mr. Perfect turns on Ric Flair, tags with Macho Man, and you know he's Mr. Good Guy. Everybody's rooting for him. I think because Mr. Perfect was such a great athlete, such a great such a great wrestler that everybody wanted to see that. Everybody wanted to see that turn. Everybody wanted to root for him as a good guy. I'm sure if Ric Flair ever became a good guy, people would probably would have rooted for him as well. But Ric Flair, I feel like, was overrated anyways as a wrestler. I never felt Ric Flair was necessarily a great wrestler. I might catch some flack for that, but I respect the hell out of his career, of course. I would love to meet him. I would shake the hell out of his hand, you know, ask for an autograph, and you know, thank him for what he meant to wrestling, and you know, for my life growing up and everything. Absolutely, but I don't think he was like the greatest wrestler ever, type of deal, anything like that. But anyways, next up, this figure is an oddity. This figure makes me mad. Texas Tornado comes with the Texas Twister. So this figure from Kerry Von Erich. All right, so this figure, like I said, when I list this figure, I get this figure in occasionally, and like I said, I buy a lot from overseas sellers, and I'll normally pick up this figure, and when I sell it, I will normally put it up on Mercari or eBay, whatever, and I might do like a buy it now, $10, maybe $15, or I'll put it like buy it now, $15, best offer, someone best offer $12, and I'll accept. I will never list this product for crazy prices. I just do not understand the value and the hype that other sellers put on this figure. It just rattles my mind to think why people are so obsessed with the Texas Tornado figure. It is not a rare, it is not a valuable figure. It's a $15 figure. I sell it for $15 because that's basically its value. I mean, $10, sure. I mean, if I look at the figure and let's say the arms are like, you know, you're shaking the figure, right, and the arms are wobbly, they're just flapping in the wind. $10, I'll take it. Now this, like I'm looking at this figure, this doesn't even have a windup. I mean, his arms are strong as heck. I mean, this is a spare, of course, but his arms are tight or super tight, but he doesn't have a working action. So I mean, just because his arms are tight, I might ask $15, but the fact that he has no working action, I don't know. I might take 12, $13 on this. But I say that because when you get on eBay or Mercari and you look up Texas tornado figures, everybody and their mom are listing Texas tornado for $30 or more, $40. Like the cheapest one I could find is someone listing it for like $28 or $22 with like $9 shipping. I'm like, are you guys sick in the head? It's a friggin' tornado. The only reason I was kind of looking for another Texas tornado, and actually I lied. This is not a spare. This is actually from my main display. Yeah, yeah. This is actually one of my main display figures. Yeah. Because what I'm deciding to do is I want to start buying some cards and bubbles, some no figures, just the card, just loose cards and bubbles, and start buying some like rare figures, right? Random loose figures, and I'm gonna start sending them to my bud Rob. So for Random Treasures, I got that LJN of Kerry Von Erich, and he's in purple trunks, and he's got the tassels and everything. I want to get that figure. I want to get a Hasbro figure customized with that exact look, and I want to put that mint on card. But I want to have an original card and bubble Hasbro. So I want to have the original the card and bubble of Hasbro, but I want to have my Hasbro figures customized, original figures customized, and I want to get them resealed. And I kind of want to create a new collection like that. So that's my goal, kind of moving forward, and kind of start that new collection. It's not gonna be anything massive or anything. At least I don't think it will be. But I want to try and get as many figures like that as possible. But I mean, it's a fine figure. Like Tatanka, he's only one of two figures that actually have the dual arm opening. So my recommendation: don't overpay for a freaking Texas tornado. If you have to, look for those overseas sellers. Pay the shipping if you have to. Try to win as many. Contact the seller first. Make sure that they are willing to combine shipping. Sometimes they will not do it. Sometimes what I had to do with my buyer or with my sellers, like if I win like 30 auctions, because overseas they cannot combine shipping, or if like a buyer from Canada buys multiple items from me, I can't combine orders with international buyers, right? So you got to cancel the order. You got to cancel all of the orders, and then they'll just take all of the winning bids, create one listing with the grand total, and put it into one listing with the grand total and one shipping price. So if they're actual decent people, they'll do it like that for you. So uh, and try to win your figures like that. But Texas Tornado, not a valuable figure. Last figure is the Sarge. Sergeant Slaughter. All right. You know what? I might want Sergeant Slaughter customized one day. I don't know. I kind of want to get like one of the Jack Pacific looks, right, with the 1992 era, where he is in his turncoat tan Iraqi sympathizer outfit. But I don't know if I can use this particular figure because of the drill sergeant hat. One of the things that I don't like about the figure, and it's very minimal, but the pointer finger always gets me with any action figure, no matter what it is. If it's Hasbro, if it's LJN, etc. Because on these figures, the pointer finger can and has does break off these figures, especially if they're played with. I've had a couple figures I've owned where the finger is broken off, and sometimes I've listed the figures and like my buyers or people that have viewed my listings, like, hey, is he missing a finger? Like, I'll look at the finger, I'm like, oh shoot, you're right. Like I didn't even notice it, and Slaughter Slaughter. I mean, if you get one that's in like, it's one of those figures that kind of goes back and forth. Like a figure like this with paint loss, you could still get a figure with paint loss like that and pay $15. And then you can get a figure that's literally brand spanking new, like mint, beautiful mint condition, and pay like as little as $8. So it really depends what who you're buying from and when you're paying for it. So, but generally, I would say that a Sergeant Slaughter is a $15 figure. That would be my average price. I would say normally between $15 to $25 is a reasonable expectation. But if you're getting it for around $12, $18, etc., you're in the bracket of what the figure costs. If you're paying $30 for it individually, even if it's the most mint figure ever, try to buy from someone else. $30 is too much. $25 I think is too much. Like I said, I when I list my figures, like I will put this figure up with like another figure and charge $25. So I try to be reasonable and maximize the output so that the person that's actually paying $25 they're actually getting the value back for their money's worth. So um, yeah, Sergeant Slaughter, he's just again another slamming motion figure. Does this have it? Yeah, this is a spare, but his action is weak. It sticks. It works, but it sticks. Yeah, but it's still a great figure. I mean, is it among my top 15 favorites? You know what? Based on look, design, even with the finger pointer, I think this could be. I think Sergeant Slaughter could be in my top 20 favorites. I don't know if I'd put him in the top 15 because once you get into like series, I think there are a couple of series 11 figures that didn't make my top 11 or to top 10 that I would like to put in my top 15. Like Ludwig Borg would probably be up there, and I think that might be up there. So, yeah, I could see that happening. But Sergeant Slaughter, I'm on like that's the last figure of the video. So, this video ran over an hour and a half, and shoot, I didn't even have any of these figures from childhood, and I thought this video was going to go so much faster than the last two videos, and this video went longer than the last video. Wow. Unbelievable. Uh, I'm sorry, guys. I really hope you guys are enjoying this series because I know I'm talking a lot, but it's Hasbro, man. I love the Hasbro line, and I get a lot of enjoyment from talking about these figures. And it's only 11 series. 11 series. That means it's only 11 videos, and after those 11 videos, I'm most likely not gonna be making any more reviews. I mean, I might in the future, but more than likely, I probably won't. I won't see a need to. So with 8 more videos, if I need to stretch these out for as long as I can, I'm glad to be able to sit down and make these videos for you guys. And I know you guys don't have to sit down and watch the entire hour and a half straight through. 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, type of deal. But if you do sit down and sit back and eat dinner, watch my videos or whatever, I really appreciate you taking the time and watch the show and hopefully you're getting a kick out of it. But man, I never expect these videos to go that long. I was really thinking it was going to be an hour long. But guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next week with Series 4, take care, everybody.